Tell me when you see it, Jay. So we should be live. Jay, we confirmed? We live?
Yes, we are live now.
We are live. My
Yes.
apology, James. Welcome back to the Angry Man Podcast with Jason and Greg. We have a special guest in the building. It is James Bell from the Boxing Source. And, I want to give James the opportunity to give a little bit of background about himself for the second time since we thought we were live about a minute and a half ago. So, James, I'm going to pass it over to you yet again and give you the opportunity to tell our subscribers a little bit about yourself, who you are, and people will understand from that point why you're on the show. So I'm going to hand it over to you, my friend.
All right, gotcha. Take two on this one. This is James Bell, the Boxing Source. We have a YouTube channel through, of course, the Boxing Source. Have social media outlets. You just look up the Boxing Source; it's all there. Started, years back, 2015, after branching out from talking on a sports podcast, a Cold Hard Truth on Sports. Where I talked about various topics in sports, football, basketball, baseball, and boxing, but, pretty much focused on the boxing front. And then started a podcast after the Mayweather-Pacquiao event in May of 2015 and been consistent with boxing podcasts ever since. So I pretty much call it, according to reports, the longest running boxing podcast around is the Boxing Source radio show. But I've also, branched out to cover live events, whether it's in the Washington, D.C. area or beyond, whether it's, New York or Dallas, as of this year, Dallas, California, and also in Florida too. So been covering a number of major events, most recently the Deontay Wilder, Robert Helenius fight that was at the Barclays Center last month. So that's pretty much a brief bio there of me up to this point.
Perfect. So you guys understand why we wanted to have James on our show from the Boxing Source. Again, guys, you guys have already known this. We have partnered with many other YouTube channels already. It's very important for us to build this boxing community. Boxing is a niche sport at this point, and I think it's very important for us all to come together and have conversations where we have disagreements or we agree about particular fighters or particular fights. So that is the reason why we do so much partnering. So, Jason, I want to give you the opportunity if you want to say something very quickly before we jump into the topics that we have for the show today. So, Jay, I'm gonna give you an opportunity.
Yeah, I just want to thank our brother James for blessing us with his presence here. He has some good knowledge, inside knowledge on boxing. He's been doing it for a long time, and he's a lover of boxing just like the rest of us. And definitely, I want to see his knowledge on as far as the contracts and things of that nature there to get his perspective on that.
Perfect. All right, man, let's jump into it. Tank Davis announced this past week that he's going to fight Hector Luiz Garcia on January 7th. It's also been confirmed through multiple media outlets that he's also going to face Ryan Garcia, and that date is to be determined. So I want to start with the Garcia fight. You guys tell me what you think. James, I'm going to pass it to you first. How do you see that matchup between Tank Davis and Garcia?
Well, with this first bout here, Devontae Tank Davis versus Hector Luis Garcia, told people with Hector Garcia is a very skilled fighter, has a good amateur background, and pretty much showed it in his fights that he's had this year. Of course, people know him from his notable win over Chris Colbert that he had earlier this year, where that was, kind of slated to be for a minor title, so to speak. But he was able to, get that win, pretty much school Chris Colbert, to a certain extent in that particular aspect, because, Colbert came in there expecting that he was going to win, that he was going to wash, Hector Luis Garcia, and Garcia just came in there and pretty much shocked him. And the thing with Chris Colbert was he thought that his skill alone would be enough to get the win over Hector Luis Garcia, but Garcia was out there, giving him, a good fight. And after about, 7 or 8 rounds or so, Chris Colbert just realized that he really couldn't do much against Hector Garcia, so he kind of conceded before the fight was even over. So, we had that particular win and then turned around and had his bout against Roger Gutierrez for the actual world title in that weight class and was able to get that win as well. So he's had two of probably the best wins of 2022 when it comes to what's happened over the course of the year. So it's a very good fighter there, 16-0, very skilled, going up against Gervonta Tank Davis, multi-division world champion. Regardless of what anybody says, he's a multi-division world champion. And so you're going to have a very good fight here in this particular matchup. And I think it probably may surprise a few folks, kind of like how the fight that Tank Davis had in his bout, before this year or last year, when he took on Isaac Cruz Gonzalez over in Los Angeles, So like people were coming in there saying, okay, who is this Isaac Cruz guy? And he ended up finding out that he is a very solid, very durable fighter. And Isaac Cruz has pretty much proven that this year.
Jay, I'm going to pass it to you, man. What are your thoughts on the fight?
I like it. I like the fact that it's not a tune-up. I give Tank credit. He's ready to be real. He's ready to hit the best out there available. It's a dangerous fight for him. I do think after watching Hector versus little shit hop, as you call him, I think Tank can get him though. I think Tank could get him up out of the action because Cobalt was successful early on in the fight. He just can't punch. He just can't crack. Because I was watching that fight, he was tagging Hector, but Hector was walking through it. Yeah. He's not gonna be able to walk through Tank, but he's a hell of a boxer, and he also has a higher boxing IQ. So that makes for an intriguing matchup with Tank and Hector. So I appreciate Tank for taking this fight here because it's not like just a bum or a cabbie. It's going to be a good fight while it lasts.
Yeah, so from my perspective, recently I watched the Colbert fight. I also watched him versus Avalar, and that's Garcia. And I think he's a solid fighter. I think he's a bit straight up and down. What I like about him is I like the combinations that he put together. His 1-2-3 is very good. He's very astute at cleaning up with that left hook. I think he opens up a lot as he's fighting, meaning when he jabs to either the head or the body, he opens up his guard, and I think that's going to give Tank a lot of opportunities to counterpunch with Tank's speed and power. I think the guy's a solid fighter. I think he was able to beat Chris Colbert. I'm not very high on Chris Colbert. I'm not very high on Avalar as well. So I think I don't see this being as close of a fight as many other people may think it's going to be, even though he's had a couple of really good wins here recently. I think Tank is probably going to find areas of opportunity to really counterpunch, slip, and get between those shots. And since he's opened himself up, he's going to be able to counter him and probably get him up out of there. I personally don't see this fight lasting no more than 6 rounds, and that's just the way I see it.
Yeah, it's possible, especially like I said, Chris was tagging him. Chris was getting in. Chris got quick hands, and Tank got quick hands. And Chris was tagging him, but I think also Hector realized he could also walk through Chris Colbert's punches because Chris is not known as a hard puncher anyway. But he pulled that mess with Tank, he gonna be up out of there in 3 rounds or less. But he's had some boxing skills. So.
Yeah, he definitely got some skills. He got some skills, and there's no doubt about that. I don't think he's an A-level fighter, right? I think he's a B-class fighter. He has some skills, but he's not very explosive. He's not very fast. And again, he has some technical deficiencies that I think Tank is going to be able to exploit just with that speed and power. Mm-hmm. And Tank, from what I've seen, I was looking at the Mario Barrios fight earlier today as well. And just with that speed, the ability to slip punches and get between those shots and actually counter, I just don't see Garcia having much of a chance against Tank. That's just the way that I see it at this point. Maybe if I get an opportunity to see more fights, I might see something different from Garcia. But at this point, I don't see it.
Yeah.
So the other thing that has been announced, guys, and we all know this, is Tank Davis versus Ryan Garcia. This is the one that we really want to get to. And Ryan actually is going to also have a fight sometime in January that I saw here recently. We have not heard who the opponent is going to be. But to me, that may be, honestly, the second biggest fight in terms of eyeballs on the sport that we can possibly make at this point, next to Terence Crawford versus Errol Spence. So I'm actually really excited about this fight. We talked about it a little bit last week. And I wanna go back into it right now since we know that the fight is actually official right now. I don't think we actually knew it was official last week. So Jay, I'm gonna kick it off with you. I think I already know what your perspective is on this fight, but I still want to ask. Tank Davis versus Ryan Garcia. How do you see that? First of all, are you excited about the fight? How do you feel about the fight being made? And then secondly, what do you see in this fight? How do you think this fight is going to play out?
I'm excited about this fight here because I like grudge matches. To me, this is like a grudge match, especially after all the banter that went back and forth between Ryan and Tank over the last couple of years or so. Especially the way Ryan kind of backed out, didn't kind of, but he backed out of fighting Tank after talking mad shit to Tank last year. My only question is this: they say they agreed to terms. I got PTSD from Bud. He agreed to terms with Spence. So could Ryan back out? Ryan is notoriously backing out before. So I don't know if it's signed yet because Oscar said we're just waiting to get the contract to sign. So agreeing and signing are not the same thing, obviously, in this day and age of boxing. So that concerns me. Plus with Ryan's history, and who knows what might happen to Ryan in this fight in January, depending on who he fights in January. So that's still questionable. I hope it still happens in April. Happening in April, Ryan's been talking mad shit. Ryan was on First Take talking about he's going to knock Tank out and whatnot. I don't see him knocking Tank out. I see it a good fight for a little while. And I see Tank getting him up out of there probably within 8 rounds. Just because I don't believe in Ryan's chin. He was good to get up from Luke Campbell, but it's Luke Campbell.
I don't, James. I'm going to go ahead and pat. Well, you know what? No, I'll go ahead and jump in and let you cap us off with this. So,
hey James, in case you didn't know, he likes Ryan Garcia.
So number one, that's absolutely false. So again, you ain't shit because you know damn well I don't like Ryan Garcia. So this is the way I view it. I was looking at the Mario Barrios fight earlier today. I was also looking at Ryan Garcia versus Luke Campbell. Also looked at Ryan Garcia versus Javier Fortuna. I think this fight is just closer than what people are giving Ryan credit for. Ryan is 5'10", same as Barrios. Barrios gave Tank difficulties really from round 1 through round, let's call it 6. He was really giving them difficulties. Ryan is a faster, longer version. And the thing about Ryan that I really like in terms of just how he might be able to approach this fight is that Tank is a southpaw. Ryan's 2 best punches are that straight right hand and that hook, and he throws a wonderful check hook. So if Tank gets too aggressive, or as Tank is coming in too aggressively, he can get caught with a check hook. Also, we already know that from a southpaw perspective, when you're an orthodox fighter throwing that straight left, throwing that straight right hand and that counter left hook or that left hook followed behind it, there's an opportunity to really hurt your opponent when you do that. And Ryan is actually also really good going to the body. Ryan, the difference between, and I know you've made this point, Jason, Barrios versus Tank and how Tank was able to walk him down. Barrios, although he's also 5'10", Barrios fights small. Barrios was crouching a lot, which made him a lot smaller, which made him an easier target. Although their reach is similar, Ryan doesn't fight like that. Ryan fights very tall. Ryan uses his range. And then Ryan is actually a lot more aggressive than Barrios, which I think will also give him some opportunities against Tank, because I don't think Tank is going to be used to someone with that much firepower coming against him. So I do believe that Tank is going to eventually win this fight. I think he's going to have to press Ryan, take the jab away from him, slip those punches, get inside and throw those power shots. And I think Tank has the ability to do that. But it's not a foregone conclusion that Tank is going to go in there and just smoke Ryan Garcia. Based off what I'm seeing in the fights, I just don't see it. So I'm going to pass it to you, to you, James. You tell me what you think about that.
I mean, well, first off, from a business perspective, they were trying to see if they could pull this fight off on January 7th, but couldn't really get it worked out due to, network and promotional things. But they were able to do that and have it scheduled for, maybe it's going to be May, I think it is. Ryan Garcia, from initial reports, may end up fighting Jojo Diaz on January 14th.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So, but that's one fight that I kind of like expected for Ryan Garcia for a while now.
Yeah.
he gets that fight, gets that out of the way. January 7th, January 14th, then they clash, and sometime around May, I think it is going to be an MGM Grand. I think they're going to try to set up for that. Could be for a Memorial Day weekend. Tank has fought Memorial Day weekend for the last couple of years against Barrios and against Rolly Romero, so that might be the schedule for him. But as far as like this fight, the thing with this, I kind of like compare it to Tank versus Leo Santa Cruz and a little bit with Mario Barrios, going up against guys that are lengthy, have long reach and things like that. But Tank usually finds a way to get through all of that. If you don't have something that Tank respects, he's going to walk right through it. And talking with Coach Calvin Ford, we have their podcast, Rise Podcast. They say, hey, you have not seen the best of Gervonta Tank Davis. And I don't think that someone like Ryan Garcia is going to be one that could bring out the best in Gervonta Tank Davis. Does he have length? Yes. Does he have speed? Yes. But as you said with Ryan Garcia, he fights tall, but I think he fights a little bit too tall and stands a little bit too straightforward to kind of like be able to take a number of Tank shots. And so once Tank kind of like gets the pattern of what Ryan Garcia does, he's going to answer right back. And for Ryan, yes, he has the speed, but he has to be confident in taking punches from Tank Davis. And I don't think he's going to have what it takes to take those punches. Because there are a couple of times in the fight with Rolly Romero that there were some little exchanges between those two. Mm-hmm. And that Rolly Romero was, throwing something, Tank would throw something right back, and then Rolly would come right back at him. But for Ryan, I really don't think he's going to have that much confidence to really take those shots out of Gervonta Tank Davis. And he's going to be lined up for a really exciting knockout finish, similar to Leo Santa Cruz.
I get what you guys are saying, but I just want to throw something out there for perspective. So everybody's talking about the fact that Ryan Garcia got put down by Luke Campbell. Luke Campbell is 5'9" and has a 71-inch arm reach. He was actually able to reach Ryan Garcia, even though Ryan fights very tall. Tank doesn't have that same reach. At the end of the day, Tank is going to have to take way more chances in order to get to Ryan's chin. Similarly, with against Rolly, he was a little bit hesitant with taking those chances against Rolly because of the power, because of the range. Mm-hmm. Ryan is going to be rangier. He's going to be faster, and he's going to have maybe not the same level of power, but definitely decent power to keep Tank honest. So Tank has to be extremely careful in the early rounds, making sure that he doesn't get clipped coming in. Because again, Ryan is very good with that check left hook. And if Tank is not careful coming in, trying to rush in, he can get caught. And again, that straight right hand and left hook combination is something that Ryan Garcia does very, very well. Do I believe that Tank has what it takes to beat him? Sure, I do. But this won't be an easy fight. And then to the point that you were making, James, we haven't seen the best of Gervonta Davis yet. Then when are we going to see it? Because Cruz pushed him. Barrios was pushing him before, round 6 until Tank started really figured out a way to start taking the jab, which was, kind of powering at his jab and making sure that he wasn't able to extend that jab full range. But when are we going to see the best version of him if we haven't already seen? I mean, I think there's a couple of opponents that are definitely not as good as Ryan Garcia that he, in my opinion, he didn't necessarily blow out. And I don't want to hear the thing about he carried them in a fight. He carried them. Tank doesn't get paid for overtime. He didn't carry anybody. I think the range gave him problems with Barrios and against Rolly. So I just don't – I think he's going to win. I think all of us are agreed that he's going to win. But I just think the difference between what we're saying is that how easy will it be for him to win? I think he's going to have to go through some shit to actually win.
But the thing is, I got more faith in Tank being able to take Ryan's punches than Ryan being able to take Tank's punches.
I agree.
So there's no way Ryan's going to have to press the issue because Tank's going to take his time. His IQ has gotten a lot better over the years. You got to admit, it's not like it was when he was fighting, say, a Gamboa, where he was just always running there being excited. But
here's the difference. But here's the only thing I want to just add. I want to add that caveat. Yes, I think Tank has the ability to take Ryan's shot better than Ryan has the ability to take Tank's shot. But I also think it's harder for Tank to actually land his shot because of the size difference. So Ryan doesn't have to have Ryan can be. Ryan doesn't. Go ahead. Why do you believe that, James?
I don't think that size difference is going to be a factor. One thing that I'm concerned about with Ryan Garcia is also his defense. He has to be able to see what's coming from Tank Davis. I haven't really seen anything as far as like blocking or moving his head well enough to kind of like take those shots, coming from a smaller fighter and someone that has like that quick twitch that Tank Davis has. So I think that's also going to be a concern for Ryan Garcia,
So James, let me ask you this, because I was watching the Javier Fortuna fight earlier today. Fortuna couldn't even get close to Ryan. He was getting absolutely clocked. Now, don't get me wrong. There's a difference between Javier Fortuna, who I believe is a little bit bigger than Tank Davis, because I think Tank is only 5'5.5". But he could not get to Ryan Garcia. Tank has a different level of speed and agility, which he's going to have to employ in this fight. But why do we feel that if Javier Fortuna was having difficulties with him because of his size, how is it that Tank wouldn't have difficulties with Ryan's size when he had difficulties with the size of Rolly and he had difficulties with the size of Barrios? That's what I'm not tracking with.
See, the thing with Rolly was, I wouldn't say it was difficulty. He was just taking his time with Rolly, because it wasn't like he would just he didn't show any frustration in that fight. He was calm, cool, and collected, relaxed.
I disagree.
Yep.
I disagree.
He
I
was
totally
relaxed.
disagree.
He let Rolly walk right into it. He just took his time. He's like, nah. He's sitting there looking at the crowd. He dancing and just clowning, because he knew he had that fight in the bag. He was not worried.
So if you actually look at the interview, he after the fight, he actually mentioned the fact that he was doing a lot of those different tactics because he doesn't want to let his anxiety. And I don't remember exactly what the words are, but guys, if you go back and look at the actual fight, he was basically saying he was trying to almost distract himself because he didn't want to get that level of anxiety. So I don't think he was calm, cool, and collected. Now I do think his style was his strategy was to let Rolly run into something. But the power and the range, regardless, they're not mutually exclusive. That gave him issues. At the same time, he was trying to make sure that he took his time and caught Rolly with something. That's the reason why he was trying to take his time and catch Rolly with something, because of the size and the range.
Yeah, I say Barrios gave Tank a harder time than Rolly did.
I disagree.
Barrios gave him a harder time.
I'm thinking about both fights. I think I disagree.
He's had fights with, Rolly Romero, Mario Barrios, Leo Santa Cruz, among others, and a number of these guys had height, reach advantages over Tank Davis, but all of those fights ended the same way. They ended up getting knocked out. They didn't stop.
But guys, but no one has answered my question yet. If he had problems with Barrios, how is it that he's not going to have problems with Ryan? That's what I'm struggling with.
Like, I just don't see. Like, the thing with Ryan is he's quick. He has like quick twitch, hands and things like that. But like, my thing with him is his deficiencies on defense. Like, he's got to be able to shore that up. And you can't be defensively lax against someone like Tank Davis. Like, he'll catch you with something and you could be, off balance and be knocked down by a punch that really didn't hit you flush. And I think that's the thing with Ryan Garcia is, like, he could get caught pretty much at any time. Luke Campbell is a taller, longer fighter, but that he got caught because he was defensively lazy on that front. You can't be defensively lazy against someone like Tank Davis. Just can't.
You be lazy, you're gonna be out. You're gonna be asleep.
Yep.
Okay, guys. I mean, I seem to be the one that's the opposite of this. I think at the end of the day, we all believe that Tank is gonna win. But I think you guys are gonna be surprised in the event that this fight actually happens. I think you guys are gonna be surprised. I think Ryan is gonna be a tougher fight than what a lot of people think, and that's just my opinion. But so let's transition, guys. WBC announces mandatory fight between Vergil, Ortiz, and Stanionis. Forgive me for just calling him Stanionis. I always struggle with his first name. Guys, I think this is a very interesting fight just because of the styles of both opponents. I think the style of these two guys are very similar in many respects. So Jay, I'm going to kick it off with you. What do you think about this? Number one, the theory that I had a few weeks ago seems like it's null and void. Yeah, it's shot to shit. I don't like you right now. So anyway, my theory has been shot to shit. It doesn't seem like Stanionis is going to actually be the opponent of Errol Spence Jr. So it seems like there is going to be Vergil Ortiz and Stanionis if Vergil Ortiz will actually take the fight, considering he didn't want to take the fight with Terence Crawford. But I'm going to kick it over to you, man. What do you think about that fight?
I love it. It's the best fight in the best. And, although they're very, like you said, they're very similar to me as well. They're not really flashy. They're solid, durable fighters. Stanionis definitely has a chin, but he's hittable. Vergil Ortiz is similar to Stanionis as well. So, I think it's going to be a really good fight. I don't have them up in the same echelon, the same level as I have like a Boots. Definitely not like a Spence and even Bud. So Bud, Spence, Boots are like the top three in that class, and then maybe Thurman, and then you can fight a battle with Stanionis and Vergil Ortiz. So this makes for a great fight. So I'm here for it. I'm here to see what they do.
What about you, James? How you feel about that?
Well, to be honest with you, I'm not sure if that fight even happens.
No?
Yeah. Thing is, WBA ordered it. Given what Ortiz gets paid for his fights, he really doesn't get paid that much for his fights. The part of the team for Stanionis will probably hold off for a purse bid, because if they hold off for a purse bid, Stanionis gets 75% of the purse, and Ortiz gets only 25%. So is someone like Vergil Ortiz Jr. that has had a couple of main event fights gonna be able to accept that he's getting 25% of a purse in a fight against Eimantas Stanionis? I really am not sure about that. But that's a route that Vergil Ortiz Jr. wants to go at. That's cool. But as far as that particular fight, if it does happen, it's going to be a very good fight. It's going to be, to me, similar to Stanionis' fight against Raza Butayev that was on Spence Ugas. That was a very good fight between those two that Stanionis was able to win. But Vergil Ortiz will be in for a very tough fight, and it'll be easily the toughest fight that he'll have over the course of his professional career. So I'm not, all that confident that Vergil Ortiz would kind of like have the clear advantage of that fight. And I really don't, like, me personally, I don't give Ortiz, that much, praise as compared to some other people do when it comes to him being an undefeated fighter and coming up. So I think he does have some deficiencies there in his game that could really clip him off in the long run. And there are a couple of fighters that he really shouldn't be in the ring with, to where he could get beat fairly significantly, especially within the top 4 or 5 fighters at 147. So, we'll wait and see how that shapes out if they do end up fighting. But as of right now, I'm not sure if that fight does take place. We'll have to just see how it goes from the business aspect of it. Yeah,
so from my perspective, I like what I see out of Ortiz. I think Ortiz is very explosive. I like what he does from a body attack perspective. I like the aggression. When I look at Stanionis, I think Stanionis is a little bit more. I think their styles are very similar, but I think Stanionis is a little bit more up and down than Ortiz. I think Ortiz has a little bit more skill. From Ortiz's perspective, I think some of the gaps in his game is, when you start looking at the way that his guard, number one, you can shoot right through his guard with an uppercut, and you could also go to his body. I think someone who has a very diverse offense can actually open up Ortiz very quickly, going to the body and just changing levels constantly, going from the body to the head to the body. I think there's an opportunity to really open him up. But he is explosive, fast, and I think, versus Stanionis, I don't think Stanionis has the diverse offense that will actually open up Vergil Ortiz. So I lean towards Vergil Ortiz to win the fight. I think Vergil Ortiz also is better at fighting both going forward and backwards. I think Stanionis has to be coming forward in order to be effective. That's kind of the way I look at it. James, I kind of want to focus on something that you said. You think he could get beat by the top 5 fighters in the welterweight division. Can you define who you believe the top 5 fighters are in the welterweight division? Because I think that will open up a broader conversation in terms of welterweights for not only us, but the people that are currently in the chat.
All right, number 1, I have Errol Spence Jr. Number 2, I have Terence Allen Crawford.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Number 3, I'm going to put in Boots Ennis. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Number 4, I'm putting in Keith Thurman.
Mm-hmm.
And as of right now, at number 5, I'm going to put in Dennis Ugas.
Okay, so I'm just going to make 2 comments, and I'm going to throw this out there for the group. Guys, I'm poking and I'm prodding here, so this is just for discussion. Number 1, Vergil Ortiz is good at going to the body, so automatically he has the opportunity to beat Keith Thurman. Period. Number 2, although Boots, I like Boots. I think Boots wins that fight. If I look at Vergil Ortiz's resume, he's beat Mean Machine, Maurice Hooker, who are definitely better opponents than anybody that Boots Ennis has beat. So I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that Jerron beats him either, just considering the level of opposition. Although I believe he will win, I don't think it's a foregone conclusion. So I'm going to pause right there and open it up to you, Jason, and then I'm going to come back to you, James, because I just threw something out there. Jay, what do you think about what I just said in terms of Keith Thurman being his body is basically a liability, and with Ortiz being a good body puncher, he has an opportunity there. And then the resumes of Boots Ennis versus Vergil Ortiz, I think if you compare the two, Ortiz should have an opportunity to win that fight. It's not a foregone conclusion. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, just looking at the resumes, you could say that about Boots and Ortiz, but it's not the fault of Boots for not trying to make the fights. He's been trying to get the fights. We thought the Canadian was going to be a tough fight for him.
Totally agree.
Canadian just didn't have it. He got in there, I think, for one, he got in there on survival mode, and then he realized, like, shit, I don't even want to be in here no more. Boots put them things on him. So, I mean, looking at the eye test, Boots clearly is better than Ortiz, easily, in my opinion on that. Now what'd you say about Thurman?
Thurman is his body, going to the body has always been a liability for Thurman, right? Yeah. So I think Ortiz being a good body puncher, he has a chance against Keith Thurman to beat him.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I mean, it's funny you mentioned Thurman and his body. I was watching Thurman train. He is the most low intensity training guy I've ever seen that puts it on the ground. I mean, you don't have to go, balls to the wall, but damn, his stuff is just like slow motion. Everything he's doing is just slow motion, just going through the motions on everything. So it's not something I would put on the ground to show that I'm working out. It's not impressive at all. We know Thurman's issue is his core. The thing with Thurman though against Ortiz, his ring IQ, I think that might tip the scale towards Thurman over Ortiz in the fight.
So James, I want to throw that back to you, man, since you gave us that good conversational piece. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, in reference to Vergil Ortiz?
Yeah, Vergil Ortiz and his ability against Keith Thurman, considering Keith Thurman can't really take it to the body. And then when you compare the resumes of both Vergil Ortiz and Boots Ennis, from a resume perspective, you got to lean Ortiz. Ortiz has the better resume versus Boots Ennis. So is it really a foregone conclusion that Jerron beats Ortiz? And guys, I'm throwing this out there because it's conversation, right? Because I think sometimes we get caught up in some of the hype and what people are saying, and some of the flashier skills versus other skills that people may have that could be applicable or could be a problem for one of those more skilled, flashy fighters.
Okay, if you could you repeat that question again in reference to the thing about a foregone conclusion?
Yeah, so and maybe this is not the way that you view it, right? So But you said that he would have any challenge. He would basically lose to the top 5 welterweights, and you included Boots Ennis as a top 5 welterweight. And I'm saying because of the resumes, I think Ortiz has been in there with tougher competition. So I think once they both get into the fire, I think it's more likely that Ortiz will be able to survive the fire than Jerron Boots Ennis, just based on what we've seen so far relative to the competition. So I'm asking you the question, when you think about it from that lens, do you really think that Jerron Boots Ennis is gonna is it really a foregone conclusion that he'll beat Ortiz based off of that?
Yes. Yes. And yes one more time. Now, yeah, listen. I've been to the dungeon, Bosie's dungeon. I've seen Jerron Boots Ennis in fights. I've seen Jerron Boots Ennis train. And it's just a completely different level. And one of the things that, that kind of like separates Boots Ennis from Vergil Ortiz is I hear from peers in the boxing game. And it's almost like how people talked about Errol Spence Jr. years ago when he was coming up, right? Everybody that I've talked to, from like fighters in other camps, from other managers, from other promoters that have seen Jerron Boots Ennis, whether it's inside the ring, outside the ring, training, sparring, or whatever, they pretty much co-sign him all across the board. And it's like his ability to do things as a welterweight that, we probably haven't seen in a while. Makes me think that if he goes in there and steps in the ring against Vergil Ortiz Jr., he is going to run circles around him. Yes, I said that. He is going to run circles around Vergil Ortiz Jr. I don't think that Vergil Ortiz Jr. has that ability or has something in him that says, wow. Like how you talked about, a fighter like being a B-level fighter like Hector Luiz Garcia. You're talking about him as basically a B fighter. What separates like being a B fighter from an A fighter to me is to be an A fighter, you have to have something that says like, damn, or wow, that's why he's up there in the upper echelon above, pretty much almost every other fighter, right? For me, Vergil Ortiz Jr. does not have that wow factor, or at least not up to this point. Jerron Boots Ennis does. Jerron Boots Ennis, man, like you could be in the ring against him, you could be throwing punches, and he'll come right back at you so fast with a counter that you wouldn't really expect from someone that's a 147 pounder that's probably coming down from like a 160 or 162 or so. But this guy in Jerron Boots Ennis, he lives boxing. Like, of course, he has his father as his trainer. He's had brothers that have been in the boxing game, but like, you have that whole thing with Canelo, or as I say, Santos Saul Alvarez Barragan, and that little moniker, no boxing, no life. That is actually what Jerron Boots Ennis does. Like, his life is boxing, period. Like, nothing else. So when I say that foregone conclusion, Boots Ennis over Vergil Ortiz Jr., like, I've seen it. I've seen it firsthand, and I'm like, Vergil Ortiz just can't. He just can't really get to what Jerron Boots Ennis is.
I hope both of you guys are right. I think when I look at the eye test, certainly Boots has every tool in the tool belt. I've said that on multiple occasions. I just think that styles make fights. And I think that sometimes we get caught up in some of the flash of a fighter and not necessarily always the substance of a fighter. And I think Ortiz, although flawed, has definitely some substance. And I just don't see this as being a foregone conclusion that Boots beats him. So one thing I do want to say, though, or I want to mention, because I saw this in the chat, and Jay, I think you replied to this, Benaya Wright, if I hope I'm saying your name right, Benaya, she said Boots is like Roy Jones to me. His natural ability is just on another level. The stuff he's best at, you can't just practice, in my honest opinion. And I to some degree, I agree with that. I don't think he has the natural raw athleticism as Roy. Roy's the most athletic boxer in the history of the sport, period. There's nobody that's, to me, even close to that. But I do think Boots has a lot of natural ability that makes him an excellent fighter. So I don't disregard that. But I also think he has, like Roy Jones Jr., because he has so many natural abilities, he also has flaws because he can rely on that natural ability. And I think that will make him susceptible to some fighters who I believe that are going to be at a higher level. I think they'll be able to press him a little bit more. Will he lose? I don't think so, because I think he has everything to be that best, that number one fighter in the welterweight division. But I do believe that he's going to be pressed and challenged more than what people think, because I just think a lot of what people are basing their opinions on is how he's been able to blow out C-level competition. Jay, what's your thoughts on that?
I mean, that's fair. I mean, I definitely see him being compared to Roy Jones now that I think about more and more, just because athleticism in there. I mean, he's not on Roy's level. Roy is just unique. You know, Boots is definitely up there. He's showing a lot of it. You know, my thing is, I can't wait for Boots to have the chance to show more of himself against better competition. And again, This is no fault of his own that he hasn't fought better competition. He's definitely been trying, I believe.
I agree.
I think he wants
that kid wants all the smoke.
Everybody.
He wants all the smoke. I totally agree with that. I totally agree with that.
So I mean, I want to see him in there. It'll be, someone said in the chat, you know, they said Ugas would beat almost everyone in there. I was like, Ugas would definitely be a good fight for anyone else in there. I think he might be a little bit too old now after that beating he took from Spence. I would love to see him fight Boots, just because of the ring IQ he has, to see how Boots deals with that. So I think that'd be a unique matchup. I would love to see that for Boots this first quarter this year. You know, since seem like the best are fighting the best, you know, i.e., you know, Stanionis, Ortiz, Tank and Ryan, you know, Bud and I'm just kidding. Bud ain't fighting no one elite this year. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah.
But I mean, Boots and Ugas would be a good matchup. I think that'd be a real good test for Boots to see how it is.
I can't wait to see this kid get in there, man, and mix it up. And just the fact that there's so many different lenses that, you know, a lot of boxing fans are looking through as it relates to Boots Ennis, I think it makes it so interesting. I mean, you know, James, you got Boots just killing it. And at the end of the day, you have seen Boots Ennis in person. I have not. You have seen some things from a training perspective, from a fight perspective that we have not. And so that's the reason why, you know, I value your opinion in that regard. And Jay, I think I'm probably more to you're probably somewhere in the middle, right, Jay, where it's like you believe in what Boots is going to do. You believe in the skills. You kind of want to see it. And then I'm on the opposite end where I'm saying, I believe in the skills, but I think we need to really flush out, you know, those skills a little bit more, because, you know, a lot of fighters, man, that are prospects, that are really good prospects, they're going to look similar to what Boots has looked against that level of competition. That's my only thing. And similar to Errol Spence was blowing out everybody, but when he started getting in there with, you know, greater competition, he still looked good, but he wasn't just blowing them out. And so Boots may be like that. He may still get in there and, man, look amazing against someone like Vergil Ortiz or Stanionis, or maybe even Spence and Crawford. But I think we still need a couple of more tests to really make that determination. That's really all I'm saying.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yep. So, man, I want to transition us real quick. I think that was a good topic. But I want to transition us to Errol Spence and his next opponent. Because honestly, I have no idea who the hell is going to be. It felt like we were going to get an announcement over the next few, you know, days, weeks, at the point in which he said a big announcement was coming, and we haven't heard anything. So I'm going to turn to you, James, because I know that you are better connected relative to the sport than Jason and I am. So what are your thoughts in terms of who that next opponent might be for Errol Spence, since obviously I got it so very, very, very wrong with Stanionis? I'm going to pass it to you, bro.
Yeah, with that announcement, they kind of like eliminated Stanionis, so there's only pretty much one person left, and that's Keith Thurman. Yeah. And so, you know, that kind of, you know, satisfies the WBC mandatory thing. It's just a matter of if that satisfies or if he's going to be paying Stanionis some step aside money there, because Stanionis was first in line for the mandatory thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and like he was supposed to be first in line for sure, because if you had Spence Crawford, then Stanionis was going to be on the co-feature bout. So he was pretty much slated as like a replacement opponent of sorts if anything happened, between like Spence and Crawford, if that date was solidified, which would have been yesterday. So it would have been in Las Vegas yesterday if that fight would have happened. But that's a whole other story, right?
Hey, we
Uh,
all hurt, James. We hurting
yeah,
for that.
yeah. So it's gonna be Spence versus Thurman. I'm looking at February 4th. Hopefully February 4th, number one, and hopefully it's in Vegas for February 4th, number two. Because if it's at that date and it's over in Dallas, then that would say a lot. Actually, that would be an indictment on Terence Crawford, because there was one instance where they tried to pull off the deal for Spence Crawford to be held at AT&T Stadium, because they had a site fee that they were willing to pay to have it hosted at AT&T Stadium, but reports were that Crawford didn't want to go for that. So I mean, if you have Thurman saying, "Hey, look, man, I'm willing, I'm able, I've been training, or whatever he's been doing," he says that he'd be ready to go against either one of those guys. And if he's ready for Spence, then hey, he'll take it for Spence. But I'm just thinking it'll be at Las Vegas. I don't think that, if I'm not mistaken, that Spence versus Porter was in Las Vegas. So I think Spence Thurman will be at the same location as well.
Jason, what's your thoughts on that fight, man? Because it does seem like that's probably the more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Go ahead.
it's not the fight I wanted. It's not the fight anyone wanted, but it's a fight on my damn sure watch.
Yeah.
Because I really think if they force Spence to fight Thurman, like it's probably going to happen, I think Spence is going to hurt Thurman seriously, man. I think he's going to get Thurman ass out there probably within 6 rounds, just because, or he might just punish his ass like he did Ugas, just because he really doesn't like Thurman. I haven't seen Spence really did not like anyone like this for a while, man. I don't think ever. But he really don't like Thurman because the way Thurman tried to dog him when he was trying to come up. So I mean, it's fair. If you're gonna force me to fight this dude, I said I want to fight, I'm gonna make him pay. So I mean, I could see him stopping Thurman. We know Spence is gonna go to the body. We know that's Thurman's kryptonite. He ain't gonna be able to skate around the ring and take his mouthpiece out to try to grab his breath against Spence, because Spence is fundamentally sound. Spence ain't gonna let that happen. So I could see him Spence stopping Thurman within 8 rounds. Yeah, and after that, I think Thurman just sail off into the sunset. He'll be done after he'll get a nice little payday, and he'll be done. Because I really think Thurman is really, 1 foot in, 1 foot out right at this point in time. He has a family. He's dealt with a lot of injuries and whatnot. So I don't see him being fully in it.
Yeah. As you guys can probably even hear in my voice, I'm quite disappointed with this fight. I don't care to see Keith Thurman versus Errol Spence. I personally believe, and I'm going to use this term that I used earlier. I personally believe this is a foregone conclusion. I think Errol Spence's style is complete kryptonite to Keith Thurman, specifically to Keith Thurman that we've seen over the last several fights. The only way that Keith Thurman can survive this fight with Errol Spence is by movement, really good movement, and the ability to try to counter Spence. But the problem with Spence is that Spence uses a multitude of different angles. Spence is very patient. He walks you down and he goes to that body. And when he gets on the inside, Keith, whatever you guys want to call him, he's not going to be able to deal with what Errol Spence is going to do once he gets inside. So I see this as Errol Spence just literally just punishing Thurman over several rounds. I just don't see Thurman having the ability to catch or do anything versus Errol Spence other than try to catch him with a shot that may hurt or wobble him. I think Spence has a very good chin. I don't think it's going to be all that easy to just hurt him. And I think he's just going to have the ability to just keep walking Thurman down and catching them and punishing them. That's just my opinion. Now, I believe Thurman will try to move, plant, throw quick combinations, and move again. I don't think that's going to be a successful tactic for the long haul of the fight because Errol will continue to walk him down, catch him, walk him down, catch him with body shots. Eventually he'll slow down. And then over the later half of the fight, he will just punish him. That's the way I see it.
Yeah.
And I think I could see them announcing the fight. If they want to be shady, a little savage, I could see them announcing the fight the week of December 10th.
Yeah, that'll. Yeah.
You know, I mean, also speaking of December 10th, anyone know about who's on the undercard?
On the undercard of what?
Bud's fight. Who's on the undercard?
I thought it was an MMA fight.
No.
I thought somebody said it was an MMA fight or something like that.
No, Groupon, they have an MMA caption on that.
Yeah,
on Groupon for that fight.
Oh, okay.
Listen, usually with all combat sports events, they're usually approved by the state athletic commission and things like that. As of right now, that particular card is not listed under the Nebraska State Athletic Commission. Yes, it's still under Ticketmaster. Yes, it's still on the schedule for that particular venue, but it's not through the State Athletic Commission. That's number one. Number two, as of right now, outside of Steven Nelson being included on the card, I have not seen any other opponents or any other fighters that will be included in this event that's supposed to be for December 10th. I still have my doubts. Like the way that this has been going on over the past couple of weeks, it's almost seeming like nothing's really going to be pulled off. Like if it does, more power to them. As for me, like I'm focusing my energy towards what Teofimo Lopez, Sandor Martin card over in Madison Square Garden that same night. So that's where I'm focusing my energy on. If Crawford evasion happens, then it happens. But as of right now, man, we're about a few weeks out and haven't seen much as far as like any updates are concerned. But we know about what Tank Davis and Hector Luiz Garcia is doing, and pretty soon we're going to get an undercard announced for that. So, hey.
So James, I want to go there. Because I haven't had the opportunity to hear your thoughts on this fight. And I haven't had the opportunity to hear your thoughts on the negotiations between Errol Spence and Terence Crawford. So we did a video on BLK Prime, and we just kind of looked at some of their leadership team that they've had in the past. And I can tell you that I was not impressed at all, right? You can actually very easily go and do Google searches on these individuals and see that they have no background in anything related to entertainment or sports. And so it gave me the feeling that the probability of this fight actually happening is very low. And then the other question that I had is, why in the hell would Terence Crawford even associate himself with somebody like this? That, if you do simple searches, like you can just go to the county searches, the clerk of courts in California, in the Bay Area, you can find a lot. I didn't put this information out there, but you can go and find a lot of information on Kenneth Frith or Desmond Gums just by going out there and looking at court documents. So these guys do not look like legitimate, I won't call them legitimate businessmen, but I would say legitimate individuals that would be in the sport, actually being able to deliver a fight from a pay-per-view perspective and able to pay Terence Crawford $10 million. So I want to pass it on to you. What are your thoughts about, number one, BLK, number two, this fight, and then number three, the negotiations that fell between Errol Spence and Terence Crawford?
See, first off, I had this company, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, I called Al, and I told Al, I got this company, right?
Yeah.
And they willing to give $25 million each. No, I'm just going. But yeah, like you were saying, simple search, background search on the company itself, on the people that are, behind the company or whatnot, to tell you that you can't really trust them to, in reference to the Spence Crawford thing, have or hold a fight of that magnitude. That's number one, right? Number two, when a lot of folks initially heard of this BLK Prime thing, right? we looked on a social media aspect and we said, okay, Prime, who is this? Who is this? Right?
Correct.
You go on like an Instagram or a Twitter. At the time, they had like under 80 followers or anything like that, or whatever it is from a social media aspect, right?
Right.
So it's like, one, it's not even like a Triller. It's not like, of course, like a DAZN or anything like that. But it's supposed to be a company that has like online content. Well, for BOK itself, it provides like shows, movies, and things like that. But
That's
from
right.
a live, live events aspect of it, they've held a couple of events, but that hasn't been since like what, January or February, whatever it is. And they supposed to have like other events that was supposed to follow that, but it never materialized. So it's like you have a company that doesn't have live events for like months and months and months, but all of a sudden they want to host an event, with WBO welterweight champion in Terence Crawford, and going up against somebody in David Avanesyan, who was originally slated to fight someone else over in the UK. So I'm like, that's number one. That's kind of strange in itself. Now, in reference to the Spence Crawford negotiations, right? For those that are not familiar with how things go, as far as like with Al Heyman being an advisor, right, or how fights of this magnitude go, those fights, those main event fights, are pretty much financed by the networks all across the board. It doesn't matter if it's what they call a PBC, a Top Rank, a Golden Boy, a Matchroom Boxing, or whatever. If it's a pay-per-view type of event, usually the networks are the ones that put up the money towards the fighters to host that particular main event on their network. So when it's a pay-per-view, you get a certain amount of pay-per-view buys in order to, as they say, break even, because they've already paid out the guarantees at the time to those fighters. So they say, hey, we need about 350,000 pay-per-view buys in order to break even if they've already paid like a certain amount of money towards the fighters, right? So the thing is with Errol Spence, he made it clear after his win over Yordenis Ugas that he wanted to fight Terence Crawford, and that was it. But with him being under Al Heyman, him having, Showtime backing him, it really didn't matter what his side of the deal was. He was already cool with it. So it was up to, at this point, Showtime to give those offers to Terence Crawford to see what Terence Crawford would be able to accept to fight Errol Spence. And initially, for some people, they felt like it was a low offer to Terence Crawford, and that was around $5 million. The reason why they offered $5 million was because those guarantees that Terence Crawford was getting while under Top Rank weren't matching up the numbers that were happening on pay-per-view.
Exactly.
So it's like, why are you going to be paying someone that is giving other companies diminishing returns? You're not going to do that.
Exactly.
So that's why they initially started off at $5 million. He returned with a figure of $22 million. Now, this is before anyone even heard about this whole BOK Prime stuff, right? So he returned with a figure of $22 million to face Errol Spence Jr. So they're like, nah, we'll come back and we'll say, hey, this is all the stuff that we got. So the most at this particular time that we'll try to get you for a guarantee is $8.5 million. He came back to him with the offer, or with the figure of $15 million. They were like, no, you can't do that. So pretty much at the last figure that they would say guaranteed is $10 million. He wouldn't budge at $15 million. So that's why people were talking about this no guarantee thing that everybody accepted. But like I said initially, whatever Errol Spence has, he's already there on the side. So it doesn't matter what his end of the deal is. He's already accepted it. It's just up to the opponent to what they accept in comparison to what he has. So with the no guarantee, it's just that, hey, it doesn't matter if you get an event that has a pay-per-view buy rate of just one person, or 100,000, or 500,000. No matter what the figure is, all of that money goes to the fighters. because Showtime wouldn't be paying any money up front to either fighter. So that was the whole thing about the no guarantee, was because, hey, if you're not really seeing that you don't really give, that much returns for us to invest this much money towards you, we'll just work it out to where it's a no guarantee, where we're not going to give you any money up front. We'll just say, hey, you go ahead and have the fight. We know that these numbers are going to be good for the fight. I mean, Spence versus Crawford is the biggest welterweight fight that has happened for like years and years and years, right? So you're bound to have a very successful pay-per-view. So why not take that particular deal? It's because Terence Crawford is used to getting high guarantees. And if he doesn't get like a high guarantee, he's not going to really go for it. So that's why he was able to look for other options. Well, that one was kind of like the last option, because you already had Eddie Hearn come public and say that he really didn't have much for Terence Crawford.
Exactly.
You really didn't say that, Oscar De La Hoya and Golden Boy Promotions was really eager to say that they could get someone like a Terence Crawford to face, say, Vergil Ortiz or Blair Cobbs or Alexis Rocha or anybody that they have under Golden Boy Promotions. So there was really nowhere else for Terence Crawford to go outside of the people that are under the advisement of Al Heyman. And since Errol Spence only wanted Terence Crawford, I think Terence Crawford got a little bit big in the head, so to speak, because he has a little bit more power in this sense, because at the time, Errol Spence didn't really say that he had other options outside of Terence Crawford. He just wanted Terence Crawford and nobody else. No Keith Thurman, no Jerome Boots Ennis, nobody else, there at welterweight. He just wanted Terence Crawford to say, hey, I want to be undisputed at 147. I want to show that I'm like, one of the best or the best pound fighters in the sport. So give me Terence Crawford. And of course, all that stuff that was happening over the past 4 years and all of that about, Errol Spence is ducking Terence Crawford. Well, now here it is. He did what he said he was going to do. He told Terence Crawford to his face that he was going to fight Thurman, or he was going to fight Pacquiao, he was going to fight Garcia, he was going to fight Porter, and he was going to try to clear everything out on his side of the street, so that once everything clears up, he was going to fight Terence Crawford. He did what he did what he said he was going to do. And now when it all comes to pass, we all now see, as Errol Spence said, now you're going to see who the one is that's holding up the fight. And he just showed it.
So I want to highlight a couple of things that you said in there, because we've been saying this on this channel for a long time. The economics of the fight. The economics of the fight has to be such that they are unwilling to pay Terence Crawford a guarantee. That was number one. That's one of the things we've been saying for day one. Number two, the whole fact that Terence Crawford has been getting a guarantee that he hasn't actually been living up to, right? So if you have Top Rank that's actually losing money on these guarantees, then it would make sense for the PBC to come in there and say, no, we're going to actually pay you what you're worth. You don't put asses in seats. And that's one of the things that's the issue that I have with Terence Crawford, because I honestly believe that he's more concerned about lining his pockets than really cementing his legacy. We heard what he said on the live stream, right? He was talking about, Errol, people ain't really buying pay-per-views no more, so you got to get this guaranteed money. No, they're not buying your pay-per-views. You don't sell. And it's clear that you haven't sold for a long time. And so I struggle with some of the things that his fans have been saying about, Spence has ducked the fight. They offered him $25 million from a hedge fund, so forth and so on. Like, at the end of the day, all of these individuals, whether it's Errol Spence, whether it's the PBC, whether it's Showtime, whoever it is, Fox, whoever's interested in buying this fight and putting up the money to secure the fight, they've been doing this for a very, very, very long time. They have business models. I'm perfectly sure they have business models that will tell them that the likelihood of them returning their money based off of what they believe or they project to be the pay-per-view buys is X probability based on what they're going to actually pay these guys from a guarantee perspective. So I knew that the economics didn't make any sense, and I knew that Terence Crawford was going to be holding up the fight, because at the end of the day, he was used to getting those guarantees, and I just didn't feel like these guys were going to be willing to just pay you money, man, and lose money on the back end. That's not how you make a successful business.
Exactly. Hey, I'll be right back real quick. I'm going to get some real quick.
No problem. Jay, I'm going to pass it to you, man, because we've said a lot there. What are your thoughts on what James just said?
No, I agree with him. I mean, it's what we've been saying on this channel the whole time. I mean, it's just the numbers don't add up. It don't make sense. There's no way in the world, business whole job goal is to make money. To front that type of money and to lose it on them doesn't make sense on someone that's not gonna give you a return on investment. You gotta have return on investment. You make good
Yep.
deals as a business, especially your first splash into it. You're gonna set the standard this high for a guy that doesn't sell. Again, we said it many times before. If it's someone like Tank, it makes sense because you're gonna get your return on investment 9 times out of 10 with Tank. And even then, it's still sketchy, because you can't guarantee it. But you have I'll trust that versus Bud any day, all day.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I I struggle with everything that I've heard relative to Bud and these negotiations. Anybody with a critical eye, anybody that has any experience with any level of business, this sounds very sketchy. And a lot of what Bud Crawford has said sounds like cap. And so I believe that that's the reason why he's going on Instagram and he said this and that. He's going on this show and that show. It's because at the end of the day, I think he's well aware that the way that he looks is bad. It just looks bad. I don't think this guy. I think he thought that. Number one, I think he's heard some of the defenses that his fans have come up with, and I don't think his. God, I don't want to sound pretentious, but I don't think Bug's IQ is at that level, right? And I think he thought that he could just take some of the arguments that he's seeing online and just regurgitate those arguments and believe that people that have critical thinking skills would actually believe it. Mm-hmm. Right. And James, I want to pass one other thing back to you because he talked about having a seat at the table, and maybe Errol's not aware of all this stuff and he's a boss and this, that, and the third. I mean, to me, and you made a great point that the channels guarantee it. My thought has always been that promoters are the ones that are actually guaranteeing these fights. At the end of the day, Terence Crawford, being the boss that he is, should be guaranteeing really himself, because he's acting on his own behalf and he has his own promotional company. So I want to pass that thought to you. What do you think about that?
Like I was mentioning in reference to how the main events go for these pay-per-view fights, the networks are the ones that invest in it. Whether it's pay-per-view fights or actual, fights that are on like, regular networks like, back in the day, HBO, Showtime, Fox, and whatnot, right? They're the ones that kind of like are investing the time because they're the ones that are saying, hey, we'll believe in you so much that we're going to take this particular time slot out of our programming schedule to have this fight on our network instead of having something else on our network, right? So that is why they invest such and such amount of money for like a Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury, or like Canelo Alvarez versus Gennady Golovkin when it was on HBO, right? Or, like I said, with Errol Spence, you're Dennis Ugas. But, Jason brought up a good point there with Gervonta Tank Davis, right? Gervonta Tank Davis, I'm going to put this out there for y'all. Gervonta Tank Davis's pay-per-view events have had more of a return than Terence Crawford's pay-per-view events. Almost every single one of them have been north of $10 million for pay-per-view revenue. Only one fight from Terence Crawford has been north of $10 million for pay-per-view revenue. So, yes, Gervonta Tank Davis has been more of a pay-per-view draw up to this point than Terence Crawford has. So, you're pretty much making profits coming off of Gervonta Tank Davis because he's not asking for that much of a guarantee up front. Because, why not? He's lightweight. Yeah, he could warrant it because of who's there attending his fights and everything like that. But if you don't have that much of a guarantee up front, you don't really have to have that many pay-per-view buys. All you have to do is like cross about 50,000 or maybe 100,000 or something like that, and you're gonna make your money after that. Terence Crawford doesn't really understand that. And if you're a boss, then you're going to be the one that's going to be, I guess, paying the promotional fees, booking the venues, paying the advertising costs.
Exactly.
And you want to ask about transparency with the parties of Al Heyman and whatever promotional companies that he works with, like say a Tom Brown Promotions or anything like that. That means you mean to tell me that you want to get numbers from companies that have put together the biggest events in boxing, whether it's Mayweather Pacquiao, Mayweather McGregor, work with Bob Arum with Wilder Fury 2 and 3, among other large events. Work with Canelo. It was able to work with Saul, or like I said, Santos Saul Alvarez Barragan with his fight against Caleb Plant. And we saw how successful that particular event was. But you mean to tell me that you want to ask for transparency when you, as a product, don't give the returns that you are pretty much asking for when you ask for your guarantees? No, that's not how it works. That's not how it works. And when you have this fight coming up on BOK Prime, supposedly, he's not getting $10 million guaranteed. No way. He's not. I've been told, multiple times he's not getting $10 million guaranteed. Wherever that came from, not sure, but you don't get $10 million guaranteed for a fight, for that particular type of fight. No, you don't.
Dude, so, I mean, he hasn't even confirmed that. He hasn't even confirmed that.
He hasn't even confirmed that, right?
And it's only one fight.
Yeah, it's probably one fight.
He signed for one fight. Sorry, James.
Yeah.
About that, but he's only signed for one fight, and AB signed for 3 fights. I mean, BLK is just going to try to just put everything in on one fight from this guy who's not a big seller.
Man, Adrian Broner is a bigger draw. Adrian Broner is a bigger draw than Terence Crawford.
He is, with less skills.
Right, but even with that, like I'm like, I know this is supposed to be a network that provides streaming content and things like that, right? The Zone, I'll just put this out there. The Zone is a worldwide company, but it's more of like a content based company. They acquire the rights for content. They're not necessarily like a Showtime, CBS, Viacom that actually has a whole production team, has a whole camera crew, or anything like that. So when they actually do have events on the Zone, like particularly in the U.S., they subcontract that out to camera companies for them to be able to broadcast all of that. So when you see some people complain about problems with the streaming and everything like that, and they say it's the Zone, well, it's actually through another company that tries to provide that content over through the Zone. So if that's happening for a worldwide based company, imagine if they tried to host, if they're hosting this thing here with Crawford and Avanesyan, imagine if they tried to even do that for a Spence versus Crawford, as Terence Crawford claims that they could have done. Come on, people got to be realistic in this thing.
That $50 million was a joke. I mean, that just came out of left field. That definitely don't make no sense. Not believable.
They said I got this company, right? Like that sounds like a what do they call it? Like a pyramid scheme.
Pyramid scheme.
Yeah. Come on, man.
So one of the things that's interesting, man, when you say pyramid schemes, as I did research relative to BLK Prime, and I found this information on Kenneth Frith, who has a background in real estate, and I found Desmond Gums, and I found our ripoff report relative to Desmond Gums, and I went and started doing some research of each one of these counties in the Bay Area. You could find many transactions relative to Desmond Gums and Kenneth Frith. I'm not going to say what those transactions are, but if you guys want to go look, you can see many transactions, and some of them don't really look all that positive. So clearly, that's the connection between those two. They both were probably in the real estate game and probably did some deals relative to a real estate game. Then when you look at some of the other individuals relative to BLK, and you go and look at their LinkedIns, and you can see what they've done in their prior jobs and their future and the roles that they're currently in. These individuals are so shady looking as it relates to being associated with this kind of entity that could pay $10 million. it simply doesn't look right at all. So it looks like a bunch of, and forgive me because I'm not trying to knock our people. I mean, at the end of the day, try to do your thing. But at the end of the day, this looks like a situation where somebody started a business of a bunch of friends of friends, and now all of a sudden they're trying to branch out into boxing. And this individual, if you go in Desmond Gums, if you look at his ripoff report, you see some negative things there. So clearly this guy hasn't been operating at the highest level of integrity. And maybe there's some things that are just fishy as it relates to this entity. So that's the reason why I believe it's a possibility that either he's not getting this $10 million or this fight is not going to materialize. But somebody asked a specific question about Brian Norman Jr., I believe it was.
Yeah, that was Brian S.
Yeah. What do you know about that, James? Because apparently BLK Prime was supposed to have him as a fighter, and that fight didn't materialize for some reason.
Yeah, that I've heard about that. That he was supposed to be part of the card there on BLK Prime ever since like March or April. That never necessarily materialized. For some people, Brian Norman Jr. kind of like got some notoriety of sorts last year because he had been having some sessions with Terence Crawford that had been, some words had been leaked out about what happened during that session. So that kind of like got him some buzz, kind of like how, years ago, Errol Spence Jr. got buzz for his sparring sessions against Floyd Mayweather Jr.
Right.
So, that, kind of like gave him a little bit of notoriety going up into this year. But like I said, they tried to, have some fights made or materialize with Brian Norman Jr. that would have been on BLK Prime, but it just never really materialized. I mean, it was kind of like, how fights on Triller fell apart, but it's now with BLK Prime. So it's on a different scale, so to speak. But, like I said, they were supposed to like have some events on BLK Prime for months that just, never came to pass. So that's why like a number of people still have doubts about this Crawford Avanesyan thing.
So I want to pause real quick. Good people, please hit the like button. We got 66 people in the building, 67 now. We got 38 likes. Please hit that like button. James, I want to ask you this. What do you know about Blue Blood's involvement with this particular fight? Because the timeline that Terence Crawford provided in his live stream and his interviews, they don't match up with what Blue Blood actually explained in his video. They are completely
off. I hadn't really watched the videos through Blue Blood. He said that he knew people within BLK Prime to, speak with Terence Crawford in reference to like having, a fight there. So it was more of like, I guess, and Blue Blood kind of like stressed this out. He said that Terence Crawford, wanted to have a fight this year, wanted to, fight this year. And I'm like, okay, cool. But when we initially were talking about what could happen with, Errol Spence and Terence Crawford, we said, hey, maybe Terence Crawford could have a fight first. And then after that fight, he could go ahead and fight Errol Spence for undisputed. So he had all of those months where he could have had a fight in the interim. Didn't really matter who it could have been against. He could have still had a fight out of the way. Go ahead. If he gets that win, he keeps the WBO belt, and then they'd be able to go in to fight Errol Spence for undisputed. But since they were going through those negotiations and everything like that, if he wanted to say, hey, that he wanted to go ahead and have this fight, especially when he goes on record on social media and says that, hey, I want to go straight into the Errol Spence fight. You said that on record. So if you say that on record, then you go ahead and do that. But if you wanted to have a fight in the interim and would have made that known from the jump, then they could have been like, okay, go ahead and do your thing. Whether it's with us or it's not with us, go ahead and do your thing. And then once you're done, you can circle back with us. But to have those negotiations go through month after month after month, and then all of a sudden you have a contract that you claim that you agree to the terms, the contract was sent to you, you sat on that contract for at least 2 weeks as been reported, and then all of a sudden you announce that you're fighting David Bainson. That's one thing, right? Now the thing on Blue Blood, right? Last week, on the Rise podcast on YouTube, that's the Upton, Upton camp where Gervonta Davis trains over in Baltimore. You have Coach Squeeze out there, Senior Cobbs, Coach Calvin Ford, Coach Kenny. Blue Blood was on there because he had reported on something that was going on between Tank Davis and Truck Simpson that a number of them felt like he shouldn't have made out there. You shouldn't have put something out in public as far as like the title goes or something like that. So they tried to clear all of that up. I was able to join on that conversation in reference to what Blue Blood was saying in reference to BLK Prime. And I made it clear. I said, I wanted to get this out of the way. I said Blue Blood, when it came to the negotiations between Errol Spence and Terence Crawford, was the initial offer to Terence Crawford a no guarantee? And he said on record, yes. And after that, I said, all I needed to know from you, that you said that they came to Terence Crawford with an offer of a no guarantee. I was like, okay. But we all know that wasn't the case. Because why would you go through all of those months saying that you're negotiated with somebody if you said that their initial offer was no guarantee?
No, that makes perfect sense to me. And we've heard the model from Al Heyman and the PBC has been somewhere around $1 million to $2 million guaranteed, and then those fighters are offered their percentage on the back end. That's been their normal operating model over the last several years. So when I heard that there was no guarantee relative to this fight, I'm like, that doesn't make sense. That's not their operating model. So I was trying to understand how they even got to that point, but you've explained how they got to that point. So that's really good. Jay, you had something you wanted to say?
No, it's on point. I agree. I mean, hearing that information there, it just makes more sense. It just adds to everything that we said on this channel for the whole time.
Yeah, totally agree. So, man, we at the hour and 21 minute mark, man. So I want to open it up for those in the chat, give you an opportunity to ask questions of myself, Jason, James, and we go from there, man. So we head into the chat, guys. What do y'all have for us?
Yeah, I saw earlier someone said a good super fight would be Tank versus Shakur.
Shakur, man, you guys know what I think about Shakur. I think Shakur washed all them boys, but that's just my opinion. Y'all may not like my opinion on that. I know we got a lot of Tank Davis fans in the building. I think Shakur washes all them boys.
What you say, James?
The only one I think gives him a challenge is Devin.
I say Devin is more of a challenge to Tank than Shakur is.
Interesting. In what sense? Why do you believe that? I think I know where you're gonna go, but why do you believe that?
I feel like he's more of a complete fighter than Shakur is.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's what I get from Dev. I think Dev is more of a complete fighter than Shakur is. Shakur, yeah, he's great from a defensive standpoint, but he has to add the offensive repertoire to kind of like make him more of a complete fighter to me.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
So what's your thoughts on that?
Tank Shakur, I mean, that's a hell of a fight. Oh man, it's tough to say. On our own, two softballs going at it. One is a defensive mastermind. The other has a lot of power and has his IQ, his box IQ has been proven that he's gotten better with that. So I could see that going to a UD. The only thing that worries me about Devin and Shakur versus Tank is Tank's power and the lack of power thus far that Devin and Shakur have shown in their weight classes. To do that. They might be able to keep Tank off him a little bit, but man, it'll be a hell of a fight. It's not gonna be like Rolly. Tank's gonna have to do a lot more than what he did against Rolly. Just sit back and wait, because those two are supreme boxers. They are very good boxers, and they have no problem just like Devin did against Kambosos. Just killed him with the jab. Simple. Keep him at bay. But Tank with that power, it concerns me with Devin more so than it does with Shakur. But I see Devin being probably tougher than Shakur, just because Devin is more battle tested than Shakur, and Devin's been in there. You know, he really been in there. He's battle tested. I think he's gonna watch it Boma as well.
Man, I see. This is where I struggle, guys, because we give Boots Ennis the benefit of the doubt just based on the eye test, and I think Shakur passes the eye test every bit as much as Boots Ennis. So that's when I struggle when we say, "Oh, well, he might not." You know, Devin will be a harder test for Tank than Shakur. I think Shakur passes all the eye tests. Now, I do believe that Devin Haney will be a problem for Tank Davis as well because of the size, the range, the boxing ability, the ability to move. He'll be a problem too. And Tank is good, man. Tank is really good. So I use wash earlier. I think I probably shouldn't have used that term. It was just trying to display my level of confidence in Shakur Stevenson. I think it's more so he wins and wins convincingly. But I just think he has the best skills in and around that weight class, defensively and otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I mean, as far as the ring IQ, I definitely give the ring IQ to Shakur and Devin over Tank. As far as that goes, power obviously Tank hands down. You know, so it's just about if Tank can outthink them enough to set a trap for them to take them out. Because I don't think Tank can beat Devin nor Shakur by UD. I think he has to knock both of them out because they're going to outbox Tank. They're going to outwork Tank because they both have range on him.
You know, I see that, we're talking about the fighters, but I don't think that we're bringing up the training camps of those fighters. And for me, I got Coach Calvin and Kenny over whatever, those other guys have.
Really?
Yeah.
You got Bo back up there too?
Yeah.
I had
like,
jab.
It could be Bo Mack, it could be K Corona, it could be Bill Haney, it could be Chris Jericho. Ben Davidson. They're not better than Coach Calvin and Coach Kenny. They're over nothing. I'm just not going to put them over Coach Calvin and Coach Kenny.
So this is my thing. I'll say two things on that. Number one, we don't have that level of insight, right? We're not in the camps. We have not seen it in their camps. So I can't look at the camps and say, okay, based off what they're doing in camps, this guy or this trainer is better than this trainer. But we all know that a training camp is not the same as a fight, right? Certain fighters, when they get under the lights, they're not the same when they're in training camp. And what I see under the lights, I just feel like Shakur is the best of those guys. Now, at the end of the day, boy, I would love to see those guys prove it. Because Shakur, Ryan Garcia, T.O., Tank, Loma, all these guys Devin, all these guys need to get in the ring and fight because they're in and around the same weight class. And they can easily prove who's the best fighter. And continuing to try to wait to build up a fight, that's a waste of time. Because all those guys are heading into their mid-20s at this point, and they need to get in the ring. I don't mind being wrong, guys. I have no problem with being wrong. Jason, I'm pretty sure you're wrong. You've been wrong. As a matter of fact, I know you've been wrong. You wrong all the goddamn time, especially with Miami Hurricanes. So I know you've been wrong. I've been wrong in the past.
We going there?
Yeah, I went there. You got your ass bust. And then, James, I know you've been in the sport for a very long time, so I'm pretty sure you've been wrong on occasion. So, at the end of the day, I'm cool with being wrong. I think all boxing fans benefit from finding out whether we're right or wrong. And I really want to see these guys get in the ring.
Mm-hmm. Greg, you've been wrong. You were wrong at the beginning of the broadcast. You're a Ryan Garcia fan, man.
I almost said, you know what? I'm going to say it. Man, fuck you. Fuck you. I'm going to say it. This is the stuff that I usually say to Jason in private. And I've been trying not to say it on the podcast. But he's driving me to it.
I like being I ain't shit.
Yeah. One of the folks in the chat left the hit me up. He said he was in the chat, live chat there on YouTube. So shout out to Lefty, chatting in, chopping in. So
appreciate that. Yeah, Derek James is definitely one of my favorite trainers right now, currently.
Yeah, I love Derek James as well, man. The thing I like about Derek James is humble guy. calls it like he sees it. And I like what he's done with Errol Spence. I think Errol Spence is underrated in terms of his ability to box. I think the levels that he uses, the angles that he uses, the skills that he uses inside his fighting style, I think they're all underrated. Now, the only thing that I can hold against Derek James is Jermell Charlo. His IQ is terrible. I'm sorry. His IQ is terrible. His IQ is terrible. He goes in there and does things that I'm like, dude, you don't have to do that. You have all the skills and tools to do this and get this guy up out of there very quickly, i.e. Tony Harrison. Jay, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I just don't think his IQ, maybe he has the IQ and maybe he just does different things that he shouldn't be doing in the ring. But sometimes I see something he does, I'm just like, why are you doing that?
Well, I'm putting Derek James as the favorite for Trainer of the Year. He was behind Errol Spence Jr.'s win over Dennis Ugas.
Absolutely.
He was behind Jermell Charlo's win over Brian Carlos Castaño for the undisputed Super Welterweight Championships. And I probably will have his fighter, Frank Martin, favored over Michelle Rivera come December 17th in Las Vegas, Nevada. So I have him as the early favorite for Trainer of the Year.
Good. I mean,
that's
I hope he does.
I mean, it's overdue for him.
I agree. Totally agree. He should win.
For real.
Absolutely, man. I think he was the driving force behind Spence beating Ugas. And man, when you think about just again overall, Errol Spence's skills, his ability, the way that he came back from that accident, man, everything screams Derek James and his ability to motivate, drive, and get that fighter to the point where he can perform at that level. I mean, he should have won it a long time ago. Long time ago.
Yeah.
Let's see what else we got in the chat.
Daryl Hill asked about what James touched on earlier about the Stanionis Ortiz fight with that 75-25 split. Yeah, I mean that's a pause to cause on that by Ortiz. Yeah, another reason for him to say no to a fight.
Yeah. Well, hold on. What's that again, Jason? I'm sorry, I missed it. What 75-25?
Yeah, 75-25 would be the split for Stanionis versus Ortiz.
Stanionis would get to 75?
Yep.
Yeah. Because he's the champ.
He's the man. Yeah, he's the I forgot what they call that champ.
He's the WBA regular world champion.
Yeah.
I personally, and you guys heard me say this earlier, so this might sound contradicting, but I never thought Ortiz was going to take the fight because he didn't take the fight with Terence Crawford. So I don't know what that tells me. Maybe that there's a level of confidence that's maybe missing with him. I don't know, but I didn't think he was going to take the fight regardless. We'll see if he takes the fight. It'll be a great surprise if he does take the fight, but I don't think he will.
Yeah.
Now, you know what was that's something interesting there because when he had the fight Vergil Ortiz Jr. against Michael McKinson, right?
Yeah.
I had initially thought that was supposed to be a WBO final eliminator. And it ended up being a WBA eliminator. And I'm like, wait, what? What? Where did that come from? You know?
Right.
So when that fight took place, it's like, oh, so you don't necessarily want to fight Terence Crawford or be the quote-unquote real mandatory for Terence Crawford as of yet? Okay, so why are you going the WBA route? That kind of like had me scratching my head a little bit, you know? So he'll have his choice, though, because he's still there at number one at the WBO, and Crawford's mandatory is due, what was that? April or something like that? April or May? I think it's May, right?
Yeah.
So he would have his choice of, or Ortiz have his choice of fighting Stanionis or seeing if he could petition to fight Terence Crawford next year. Crawford is not really going to face Errol Spence Jr. So
yeah. Another one, they said HLD said he thinks Rivera will outbox Martin 116 to 112. What's y'all take on that fight? I could see that happening. I mean, because Martin is young as far as the boxing game.
Yeah, I could see that happening, but I'm not really all too sure about 8 rounds to 4 for Michelle Rivera. Not really sure about that.
Yeah, I don't really have a take yet because I haven't seen enough of Rivera yet to really tell you how I feel about that fight. I need to really watch him. Profound Dreamer said in the chat, would y'all agree that Spence versus Thurman is worthy of the ring championship at welterweight? Spence deserved the lineal 147 status before he moves up. What are your thoughts on that?
Ooh. I don't think so. Because Thurman is not. I don't think Thurman is high enough in the rankings for that.
Who's the ring champion currently?
I don't think there is one.
Yeah, because I have never heard of a ring champion at that weight.
I'm gonna like see if I can verify that. If there is a ring champion, maybe Spence is the ring champ.
You would think it would be Spence, but I have not heard of Spence actually being the Ring Magazine champion at 147.
He's number one, but he's not the ring champ, and Thurman is not high enough. He's ranked number 7. Like, he's actually below. They got, well, of course, because actually that shouldn't really make much sense because he fought this year. Thurman is below Stanionis and Vergil Ortiz and Yordenis Ugas and Boots Ennis. But hey, but yeah, that, I guess that wouldn't necessarily warrant that being for the Ring Magazine welterweight title.
T Word said Spence is not there. Is no ring champ right now.
Yeah.
I got like a direct message from Lefty there that's currently on the chat here. He thinks that Ortiz Stanionis is going to get made because Vergil was scheduled to fight on December 16th or whatever it was, but that got pulled. So maybe they may have a deal worked out. The thing with Stanionis is his guy is what is it? Pro Bellum guy, Richard Schaefer. That's going to be interesting because Richard Schaefer is a guy that used to work with Oscar De La Hoya in Golden Boy Promotions before he dipped out and was really part of the whole transition of all those fighters going into Premier Boxing Champions. So I find that going to be interesting that they're going to have Stanionis versus Vergil Ortiz. But Stanionis did say that he does have a fight lined up. So
yeah,
he did.
I guess they did have a deal worked out.
Everyone said they have a fight lined up right now. It seemed like Boots that he was training,
Yeah, Boots
out there
said he's
doing
training,
doing his low intensity training.
Ellis said he's training, Stanionis said he got a fight lined up. All of these welterweights now having fights lined up.
Let me ask a question though. Did Stanionis say he had a fight lined up, or did he say something to the extent of there's big news coming? I'm trying to remember the tweet right now.
I think he said big news coming.
Yeah.
Like a fight of the year type thing coming.
Yeah, exactly. But he didn't necessarily. Yep, gotcha. Go ahead, Jay. I'm sorry.
You good? I think if I'm not mistaken, Boots' dad just recently stated that Rashid Ellis did decline.
Yeah, he turned down. Yeah, he turned down the offer to fight Boots.
Yeah, Bozy been talking a lot. He said Keith Thurman turned down. Well, Keith Thurman wanted $10 million to fight Boots, which that's just another way of ducking.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Stanionis said fight of the year pending. Yeah, I think it's going to be Vergil Ortiz. The way that their styles are, kind of like would make for a fight of the year.
Yeah, I can see that.
I feel it's a step above Stanionis versus Butayev, and that particular fight to me was one of the favorite fights that I saw live. So.
Yeah, they went at it. Yeah. On that one. It's amazing how all these great fights are happening, and on December 10th, a great fight isn't happening. It's just amazing. Speaking of December 10th, what you think about T.O.'s new fight? Since
well, the WBC in their convention had ordered T.O. versus Martin. So
didn't Martin back out of that?
No, that's
what T.O. said.
Yeah, that's who's going to be in this particular fight because this is supposed to be Teofimo versus what was
Pedraza.
Pedraza, yeah. But then Pedraza, got sick or hurt or whatever it is. So now Sandor Barton is inserted in. So that's going to be something there. Some people think that Sandor Martin might try to get T.O. in this one, but I think T.O., if he gets through this particular bout, that could potentially have him in position to,
fight who's lined up for him next, because you have next week coming up the thing there with Jose Cepeda and
Regis.
Regis Progress.
That's a
It's
good
for
one.
that's for the vacant title
That's a good one.
here at 140, right? And the way that it works for vacant titles is once you win the vacant title, you're slated for 2 bouts against the mandatory challengers back to back. So you have Jose Ramirez, who was supposed to be fighting for that vacant title. That's
Yeah.
next in line, and then you have Teofimo Lopez. So, hey,
Yeah, I want to pause real quick and say, guys, if you could, please hit that like button. It helps people find the content of the channel. Or if you don't like the content, hit that one too, man. It gives us feedback. Also, if you haven't had the opportunity yet, please hit that subscribe button. Become a part of the channel. We love talking boxing. We love to have you as a part of the channel. Go ahead, James. I'm sorry. I think I interrupted you.
yeah, I mean that's basically the gist of what's happening for at least that WBC version of 140. You have those top guys there fighting for the vacant belt since Jose Carlos Ramirez, went out and got married or having honeymoon and all that type of stuff. So congrats to him on all that. So once you have the results of Progress there versus Zepeda, then you'll have either Ramirez next in line, or you'll have the winner of Lopez versus Martin next in line for that. So definitely got some good fights up there at 140 coming up.
Oh yeah, 140 is gonna be a nice division. It's gonna be a nice division. I see Devin being there probably within 2 fights easily.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think he was on my ass. He definitely gonna get up out of there.
yeah.
I mean,
so what else do we have in the chat, gentlemen? Let's see what we got here. If we don't have anything, we're going to go ahead. We've been going for 1 hour and 40 minutes now. Do we have anything else in the chat that we need to address?
that's why I'm going through it now to see if we missed anything. Someone said Boots might be on the undercard of Tank's fight in January.
Yeah. That's been reported. We're trying to see if it's going to be, was it like Cody Crowley?
Yeah.
Because it has to be someone within the IBF rankings. So it's not, like we said, we talked about the whole thing with Ellis turning down. So you got to go down the line, and Cody Crowley is next on the list. So that's likely going to be it. That'll be a co-feature bout. Had spoken with Jaleel Major Hackett, young fighter there that's under TMT. He's scheduled to be on that card as well. He does have a fight scheduled for December. That thing with Frank Martin and Rivera. So he's scheduled on that card. And if he gets through all that and gets cleared through all that with no problems, then he'll be right back at it on January 7th in Capital One Arena in Washington, D.C. So there's that. And there'll be a couple of other fights that might be pretty good that'll be on the card as well. I mean, Tank Davis cards, like in a good amount of occasions, are very solid cards. So
yeah, they usually are.
So definitely look forward to see what happens, over in DC, and of course, I'm gonna be up.
I know you'll be.
Yeah, that's automatic.
Speaking of Tank, what y'all think about Tank and the whole Mayweather, or lack thereof, of Mayweather talking about Tank's upcoming fights?
Yeah, that's interesting, man. That dynamic has been crazy. I saw something from Tank basically saying something about Leonard Ellerby was betting for Rolly Romero.
And that was like brand new, but the thing is like they had already had the contract thing as far as like him being under Mayweather Promotions that like running out. Mm-hmm. So they, pretty much like split on those terms, and like Coach Calvin said, it's basically they're just having Tank be, fully under the advisement of Al Heyman and not, have the thing there with Mayweather Promotions banner. So he'll have his own GTD promotion. So there's that, and of course, Floyd Mayweather being Floyd is like, you know what? My thing is this. Tank, I got love for Tank. He's a hell of a fighter. And we just said, you know what? You're good enough to be on your own. So I got love for Tank. Tank has love for me. And we just left it at that. So
You forgot about to talk about yourself too. He's about to say, I made smart investments.
You know what? But as you see with Tank Davis, I have made a smart investment in Tank Davis. And something else too. I'll make sure it leaves the game with all of his faculties.
That's 100% Floyd, man. He literally Floyd has about, I would say, 10 or 11 sentences that he uses over and over and over and over again, and then he supplements those sentences with a few more. Throw in a few cars, smart investments, buildings in New York, and you have Floyd Mayweather's interview. So that's definitely Floyd.
So who is Tank signed with right now, or has he signed with anyone yet?
No, he hasn't signed with anyone. It's just his own thing. It's how they work things out. How you have Bomb Squad promotions, you have Man Down promotions, you have Lions Only promotions. Now you're gonna have GTD promotions. So that's kind of like how it works. You talk about those deals that they had with the pay-per-view deals or whatever it is. They also have other deals where they put in a percentage of an investment towards the promotion or the booking and things like that. So they get multiple payments off of their events by doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, C. Debler, HLD said Tank is signed directly to Showtime now.
Well, I mean, one way or another, Showtime is like they have that pay-per-view deal with Showtime. The thing with Mayweather and Leonard Ellaby is they kind of like orchestrated him to have that type of deal with Showtime to go from regular Showtime.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that is, how they were able to bridge him over to kind of like have that and just say that, hey, are you willing to kind of handle things on your own? Once you're able to do that, then we'll just say, hey, you go ahead and you do your own thing.
Yeah, I just hope GTD promotions don't get off to a bad start in their second fight and he get those hands put on his cheeks by Ryan. Anyway, what else do we have?
Here you go, man. Tank gonna be a daddy twice. He gonna own both Garcias.
I just think he might get those hands put on his cheeks before he owns them. That's all I'm saying. Let's see what else we got in the chat.
Speaking of a fight, the other day, Anthony Yard fought yesterday. Steven Sorby said Arthur Beterbiev versus Anthony Yard is confirmed January 28th.
Beterbiev.
That'd be an interesting fight.
That's gonna be a pretty good weekend.
Yeah, it'd be.
You're gonna have Beterbiev Yard, and you're gonna have Charlo versus Tim Tszyu.
That's right.
Yeah.
So they fight that night too.
Yeah, that'd be a good weekend, man, and I'm here for it wholeheartedly. Let's see. Do we have anything else in the chat?
I just hope Yard has worked on his stamina more than anything else, his conditioning. That was my only concern with Yard. Like when he fought against Kovalov, that was a hell of a fight against Kovalov, but he just ran out of gas.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right, guys. Let's wrap this one up. So I want to give a few shout outs. Number one, I want to give a shout out to T Ward. T Ward is our guy. He comes on as a guest panelist, analyst, whatever you want to call him, regularly on our show. He's also someone who does, he's a moderator for the channel. T has the Mic Check podcast. I have checked out T's podcast. It's very good. They cover all kinds of sports, football, boxing, and otherwise. Please go subscribe to T Ward's channel. It's called The Mic Check. T Ward, please do me a favor and drop your channel link in the chat. Then I want to give just shouts out to everybody that's in the chat right now, man. We have a lot of people who are our regulars. The Keggy, For Ben Media, T Ward, of course, Brian S., C. Dewberry, Anton Richardson, G.A. Peach. Who else? Who is always in our chats, man, that we always see, Jay, that we saw in here today.
Brenda was in here. Denise.
Yeah, Brenda was in here. Shouts out to Brenda. Everybody that's joined the chat, and definitely everybody that gave to the channel. So we know Brian S gave to the channel, big time supporter of the channel. We appreciate you. Profound gave to the channel. And we had one other person that gave to the channel, Jay. I want to give him a shout out. Do you remember who that was?
Oh, shoot.
I don't remember who that person was. Sorry, guys. We go through a lot of stuff. To that person.
Said Profound already, right?
Yeah, I already said Profound. To that person, man, again, appreciate it. I can't find who it was that actually did that. But again, props to everybody. James from the Boxing Voice, thank you, brother, for joining.
C. Dewberry.
C. Dewberry. Thank you, C. Dewberry, for your contribution to the channel.
Hey,
James.
Just a quick announcement, Greg. The proceeds that was given to us, they would not be going to Greg's Ryan Garcia campaign. We would not I would not allow that.
Man,
I would not allow that. So y'all don't have to worry about that Ryan Garcia. He won't wear no Ryan Garcia shirts, boxers, socks, none of that shit. All right, I got y'all.
Fuck you, Greg. Fuck Ryan Garcia, and fuck everything you stand for. So nah.
He's like, fuck you, and fuck you.
There you go. Next. James, man, I appreciate you joining the show, man. You got a lot of boxing knowledge, man. You got a great show. We are subscribed to the channel. When you get the opportunity, please plug your channel into the chat. And also, I want to give you an opportunity to plug your channel right now so people can follow you.
All right, it's the Boxing Source, of course, through YouTube. Like I said, we have live conversations, like I said, Sunday nights, pretty much not that long after this live conversation will be on. We'll talk about a little bit more on the Tank Davis schedule for 2023 and looking ahead to that Prograis Cepeda fight, among other news. But you can also follow us through social media on the Boxing Source, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We're pretty much everywhere there. So, and also podcasts are available through iTunes, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, whatever you use to listen to your podcast, we have them there. So that's
perfect. Appreciate that, man. Guys, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button. Also, go follow us on Twitter. We're going to build our Instagram page here soon. We will be on iTunes, Google Podcasts, and all those other media outlets as well very soon, working on getting that done as well. Again, appreciate you guys. Appreciate everything that you guys have done for the channel. Much love. And until next time, you guys know every Sunday, 4 p.m., we are going to be here to bring in the latest in boxing content and also to give our opinions on them, whether they're right, wrong, or whatever. You guys get an opportunity to judge them and be a part of the conversation. What are you about to say?
Especially next week, Regis fights on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sunday we're gonna be talking about recapping that fight as well. We'll probably drop a couple of prediction videos about it when Cepeda and Regis coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. I've already started working on the Ryan Garcia versus Tank Davis breakdown fight. So
figure that.
I hate your motherfucking guts. Anyway, guys, this has been the Angry Man podcast. We definitely plan to give you guys some more content in this week. Even though it's Thanksgiving week, we will definitely be dropping content. Thank you guys. GA Peace. Thank you. Until next time, guys. Peace. And hit that like button and go subscribe to the channel. Later, guys.
Later.